Hello everyone, welcome to Friday trading recap and teachings. So Friday, while there was big winners for us early in the day, overall it was a choppy day in the market and we will discuss all that. So guys, those who are new, these are my daily recaps where I recap the trades from my community, any trade ideas I give on Twitter or any trade ideas that my traders, my team, and anybody in our community is trading on trading floor. We look at those. We look at our winners. We look at our losers. We look at what made us money and what did not work. We play repeatable setups day in day out. My strategies that thousands of traders across the world use. We play those again day in day out, and that's what we do, and that's what I'm going to recap, go through the main plays, main losers today. Every day I wake up 1 hour before the market open, and me and my team, we go through all the news sources. I share all the news with the community, upgrades, downgrades, pre-market up movers, down movers, analyst comments, and then we come up with the watch list for our news plays. For example, this was our watch list for today. These were our plays which we played: Intel, AXP, Visa, KLAC, and among others. So these are the plays that we will recap today how they went. I gave these plays to the Twitter as well. I give a free watch list every Friday so that people can trade. A lot of people benefited from American Express trade plan today. So we'll discuss that. And not only that, in the morning I give the levels to everybody so everybody can trade off those levels. For example, today the Boeing and Netflix were great setups based upon those pivot levels that I provide every day. All of this is provided by me in the pre-market to the traders in my community so that we can trade on our own. Our focus is I guide them. I'm on the voice 2 hours when the market opens, but our focus is to be accountable of our trades, and I share what I'm trading, and we are not an alert service, but I guide through all the trade ideas that I give in the morning, and if I see something in middle of the day, I share it with my community. And never a hindsight from me, always trade ideas before and after. So all right guys, so that's enough of introduction. We're going to start with major plays of the day, and I'm going to start with the big winner we had early in the morning. So let's start with our big play of the day today. Just like we were IBM yesterday, today was American Express. As I always say, earning provides us with a lot of opportunities, a lot of plays that we can play. Okay, let's see what American Express did for us. Let's first go to our news plan in the pre-market. The plan was simple. American Express recorded a full year revenue of 60 billion, good earnings. Support pivot was 188.50 and 185. The resistance pivot was 192. The plan was to be neutral bias, long over 188.50, short under it. So that was the plan, long over 188.50 and short under it. So as soon as the market opens, I see the strength. There are two things I see. I see the downtrend line breaking out, pushing over, and then I start to see the push over the pre-market highs. So as soon as I see that, I say it's bullish. I'm on the voice. I tell everybody to watch pullbacks to the long. If you didn't get in, get some lotos. I mentioned on the voice that you can get some lotos because I know how this works. If this works, your lotos are going to pay you a lot. Get some 200 calls. I told everybody to get some 202.5 calls. But anyways, that was my voice guidance. Then I was keep guiding everybody towards our target. The first target I gave was 200, and that when we hit our target, we met our 200 calls went 100%. We always lock the first move. We lock some position, then we lock rest into 10 a.m. So we logged into the 10 a.m. By the 10 a.m. the stock was trading at 203. I said use your profits and roll into 202.5s. Even those went to 202.50s. In first 30 minutes, our stock went from 193, 194 all the way to 203. So there was almost $8 to $9 per share of profit to be made, where your risk was only $3 or $2, and that was great. One risk to 4-5 reward trade, right? And then there was a flag breakout. I said 205 target. rolled into those 205 calls and let the profit ride, and almost to my 205 target. We met 204.77 on this American Express trade. Why was this a confident trade on American Express? There were many reasons. There was the bullish chart breakout. I always look at daily. Bullish chart was breaking out over the daily pivot. Then American Express was breaking out, also broke out of that, the big pivot. Let's see, yeah, it's all-time highs there on American Express. So A plus setup, guys. This was A plus setup on American Express. Great winner, great winner. You can see my timestamp guidance right here, and you can see how we traded it. Also shared on Twitter with my followers. So that was a great day on American Express. Either you wait, even if you followed my pre-market planning, you did good on American Express, same setup, or if you waited for my guidance, even then you did good. Let's look at the another one. So Visa and American Express, they are together, they are same. So Visa was also good. I was busy on American Express at the morning, but the plan I gave everybody on the Visa was this. Was support pivot 263, resistance pivot 266.50, bearish to neutral. If cloud fails, will short. If 26.3 fail, confirms, right? Cautious of B minus push over the clouds, 263. No, let me see the where is my 266.50. But right at open it pushed over the 266.50. It pushed from that pivot I gave all the way to 270. So there was some money to be made in amateur move if you were not focusing on American Express, if you focused on, because on the amateur move you can only focus on one at the time. And if you focused on Visa on the amateur move, it pushed from 266.50 pivot that I gave all the way to 270. So there was money to be made on the amateur move. Now, like always, there were some new traders, who do not understand. They try to add the tops because there's a gap fill here on Visa. Of course, there's a gap fill. This is a rejection. When a gap fills, it's always a big profit-taking resistance. The full gap already filled. What are you expecting buying here, right? So that's your mistake if you're buying here. It pulls back, and I tell everybody to buy the pullback versus the cloud. This is the 512 EMA Cloud setup. So I said everybody to pull back can add, okay, pullback lows can add cut if break lows, and then it bounces from the where I said risk was 265.50, and it bounces from there all the way back to 269. First target was 269, and then you get out here, right? So you see that was a Visa. This is a different way to trade everything. This already filled the gap. American Express was a different setup. This was a different setup. But how you trade it, how you get an entry, that depends upon you. That's your execution. That has to come with your confidence. But anyways, the plan worked flawlessly, and my guidance was good. Some people were panicking. I told them to, this was a setup. So very proud of this one. All right, let's look at KLAC. So what was the plan on the KLAC? So KLAC was company posted light revenue and earning per share, and their support pivot was 600, 590, resistance was 624. I said keep eyes on the cloud. If breaks the support, will be short, neutral buys. If market weak, will be a good short versus 624, 625. And guess what happened, right? What was my pivot? What was my pivot? 624. It rejected at 624. I did not short that. I did not get that entry, but I saw the weakness. When I saw the weakness on the KLAC, and that's what I said. I saw the weakness little late. I saw the weakness at, it was almost 10 a.m. right? If I had seen this flush here, I would have shorted here. But that was the plan I gave, right? I gave everybody 624 plan. So you know that you have to short under the clouds. But when I saw this, that's when I took the lotos. I said short on bounces versus the highs. And the KLAC, it looks like it is not a big move, but it pulled from 6010 all the way to 596, right? So that was a $10 move, and it was the short scalps. And you have to cover there, and then when it comes back, you stop out break even. And because market is bouncing, that's why, right? So some people did good on KLAC today, so that was good. Paul did 50%, and then it was a 600 was a big level, so that's why I was saying 600 psych. That was the target, 600 psychological level. We got some more, so that's good enough. All right, guys. Now let's look at what was it? IBM was a day two setup. You probably know what a day two setup is, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on a day two repeatable setup. So IBM was a day two setup. I was long on IBM for a day two push, over the clouds, but it failed on me, so I had stopped out. So I said I will stop out under the pivot. So I was out at 10 a.m. Right at 10 a.m. I was out. But then I told everybody that it's short if keeps failing the levels. Since I stepped out from 190, look at the fade all the way to 186, right? So 186 all the way to 186. That was a short idea. That was a 10 a.m. short setup, right? This is what I discussed in the webinar as well. So 10 a.m. short idea. So that's fine. I personally did not short it, but my idea on the short worked. Small loser for me, but nice winner on the short side. Some traders traded it short, so that was good. So you see Ganesh G was short, so very proud of that. So that was really good. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, guys, let's talk about Boeing today. Okay, so what was Boeing doing? Okay, Boeing. First of all, I gave the 204 level to everyone. I was on the Boeing talking about this level. Here was my Boeing levels. 204.80 is the resistance pivot, and as soon as it breaks, you take the long on Boeing and watch the longs. I said on the pullbacks. So Boeing, first of all, if you are in the first amateur trade, that's good enough. You already got a couple of points. Now you let it pull back. It's not holding there. It will ideally pull back to 204 level. That's what I said. That's what I mentioned. Never broke 512, and this was your second midday add versus 204. Good push back up, and then you get out, right? What happens here? So you have to be either. That's what I say in the morning trades. You have to watch. You either in at the open or you wait for the pullback, or you don't really trade the setup. This setup is completely different from American Express. It's a bearish and it's trying to fill the gap, and it's amateur move. So you just have to watch your entry. So 204, this breakout was the entry for you because it was the previous breakout, new support. So that was Boeing. All right, let's look at Tesla, guys. Tesla, Tesla was a day two setup for us, right? So our focus was on Tesla day two setups, and Tesla respected the levels cleanly. What levels did I give you? Let's go back and look at my Tesla levels that I gave everyone. So I said 186 is the resistance pivot, the support pivot is 183.85 and 180. And what happens? Let's see what happens. What does Tesla do? Goes to 186, rejects, right? Pushes a little bit over, rejects, pulls back, could not break over that 186 area. So my pivot is working flawlessly. So either you short here, the morning short, right, or you wait for the rejections to short it. Win was on top of it. Pops versus 186. I was on the voice talking about the same thing. Lows, lows, lows. Again rejecting. So it was working, but the problem was they were that 184 was bouncing again and again and again. So we wanted to get that 184 break. So once finally the 184 breaks, then it hit 180. 182.40 was my target, but we got 180.50. And then it came back right again. You only watch 186. That's your resistance. To watch. And later in the day, I created this pattern. You can see here, I created this before and after. I put a quiz on Tesla on Twitter that what side it goes, and then it broke down because it was bearish, because it was rejecting, and nice fade all day. So really good short on Tesla today. People did really good on Tesla. So so that was good. So good there. So that was a Tesla recap. Let's see day two. Now it's going to be day three. Let's see what it does. All right, let's talk about Intel. I was not touching Intel in the morning. The problem was let's go back. Let's look at our news play levels on Intel. So the plan was 45.45. That area is a resistance. Look where it rejected. right? So levels are always on the point, guys. I mean, it's not just like just to say it. I draw these levels, they work, you know, on point. I gave it free levels today to the Twitter as well. So if you showed it there, you made a good one, right? But yeah, the level I gave you did a good one, but it was never breaking that 4350 area. So I warned everybody, it's not breaking 4350 area. Be cautious, right? And there's a pre-market level, and that's what it was doing. It was bouncing over that. You could trade long scalps over versus that 45 430 50 level. There's nothing much. Then it was bouncing again versus 4350, and then so when I said, yeah, so it was bouncing, I told people to scalp it. So it was a good scalp into 4465s from this 4350. So that was the guidance, guys. I personally didn't do much with this. It was too choppy. But you can see it was rejecting the pivot point I gave. Had no need to just hold your shorts when the level is not breaking, and then you can scalp the bounce versus that bar with the buyer which is supporting it was clearly there. So that was the Intel great guidance today in the community. All right, let's look at coin. So coin, guys, plan was simple: 188 resistance, 125 support. So short under 128.5, watch the 128, rejects a B minus short. So here are the levels: 128 area. So this were the initial levels, but so you see 128.60 and the support was 124.40, but on my voice I identified 125 as a level. But you can clearly see, right, that 128, look my comments here. If fails 125, watch the gap fill versus 128 rejection. So bearish bias, right? But it swiped one time and then again rejected. That tells you to get back in the short, and then you add more under this 3450. And I said cover at 121s and almost hit 121. So so you see that, right, how the levels help you trade. So if you are adding in between those levels, you are gonna get chopped. So you have to wait for entry closer to your level. Let's look at now. Okay, so what was now? So now trade was I think it was a day 2. Now trade was day 2. The resistance pivot was 768 and the support pivot was 757. So let's see what now did. So now right at open, my resistance pivot, it breaks out of the resistance pivot of the 768 and pushes to yesterday's highs, right? Simply you had to follow the resistance. We were trying to get the same thing from IBM. It did not give us, but now gave gave the pull, right? If you were trading, you don't have to trade everything, right? Somebody's trading now, somebody trading IBM. I did not trade now, right? I had a big winners on American Express, Visa, KLAC, all those. So I don't trade everything, but my guidance, because everybody has a different taste, different styles, and you can see how the setups working day in and day out. If you got now, that's good. You should be on top of it. And the pre-market plan was on the point. All right, guys. So Netflix was another one which was over the pivots today. So Netflix, well, let's look at it. So Netflix, the pivots were 567 and it was a day 2 setup and it moved over the 567 pivot. Here's the breakout. You long it, put your stops somewhere, resistance of these candles or low of these candles, and you just hold to your target. I gave the target of 580 on voice, and what target did we hit? We hit almost 580. I told people take some off at 580 big level. Take some off at 580 big level. And look what happened when I said that. 580 big level, breakdown, rejection, fade back, almost 10 points, right? So right on, guys. So that's why you need to respect your levels. Let's look at one of the pre-market plan play. Let's see if I can show you that. 1 second. So that play was CL, 4-quarter profit. 8130 is a resistance pivot, 80 is a support. So let's see Colgate, that the pivot I gave, this was again a good amateur trade. If you did, it broke out of 8130 and let's see, let me see again. I messed up the level here. So 8130 was the support. So this was the level that was supposed to put here, and this was the breakout you could have traded on the CL, risk. You see where it bounces from, right? That cloud 8130 area, and then pushes over the pre-market highs for nice scalp. Just a recap on this, how that plan went. Let's look at CRM now. So CRM, the pivot was 280. They were laying off 700 employees. I was bullish to neutral. The support was 276.85. Let's look what CRM did. So, okay. So CRM, the cloud, okay, let's see this. What was the support again? Support was 276.85. So 276.85 was the downside support. And there is also a cloud support, and then there is a resistance pivot of 280. So it breaks out of the 280, pushes, amateur move rejects, pulls back to the cloud. So this is a 3450 cloud move, right? And then, so you can always add the cloud pullbacks, and then it pushes again over the 280 pivots, and then you can add again over that pivot, yesterday highs, and then it pushes like crazy to 283. So that's how I would trade it. I know few traders were short after this 512 break. There was a nice B minus short later in the day, but I think the levels played perfectly on the CRM. So that was it, guys. Let's look at SPY QQQ. Before we wrap up, let's see what SPY QQQ. Overall, for the marketplace, it was a very choppy day. There was nothing special. Even I got chopped out on a few of SPY trades because it was, not giving us something solid. Only good trade that I had on SPY was end of the day, this setup. So you can see how it's chopping. So this is the setup I gave everybody in the community in our SPY SPX room. Then it pushed really nicely. You can see here 488 hands. So and there was EMA Clouds there, so that gives me added conviction. So that was a nice end of the day scalp. Apart from that, there was nothing much. Yes, this was breaking out, but this is not what I want to see, right? So if you look at the daily chart of SPY, what is it doing, right? What is it doing? It's just, they're same thing, up, down, up, down, up, down. This can be a bearish candle though. For next, we can pull back to 485s or 484s. So we'll watch what we do on Monday. But this action is kind of, it's kind of a little, not really good. Not enough range. You see the ATR is just 60% and SPY is just stuck. But so there was not much in SPY QQQ, guys. But watching it on Monday, I think FOMC is next week. So whatever it is, we'll trade it. Today was a good with some news plays led by American Express. Hopefully Monday is better, but keep eyes on this SPY chart. If it breaks today's lows, we might have a red day on Monday. So all right, guys, thank you, take care, bye bye.